Good afternoon, everyone. I have to ask, are the creatives in the building today? Do we have some creators in the house? Okay, okay. Clap it up if you are an instrumentalist. You have anybody that plays an instrument? Okay. We have some vocalists in the building. Okay. What about songwriters and producers? Okay. So I think all of us probably can look back at a time when we were in somebody's music class or we were taking a private lesson, studying an instrument or studying the craft in a way that made us become vulnerable to creativity. It made us tap into what we wanted to put into it, but also what we could do to help us expect more from ourselves. How we could tap into something that would have us strive to reach a new level through what we're able to create. And so I honestly believe that creative and critical thinking is something that was born in those moments, right? And honestly, that type of thinking and that type of execution is not optional. It's a natural, fundamental human resource, just like water and food. It's how we solve problems, how we adapt, how we build culture, and how we sustain our communities. Music education sits right in the center of that development. It's not just about training musicians, it's about developing thinkers, collaborators, community leaders, and storytellers. People who know how to listen deeply and respond in real time. So we're now entering a moment where artificial intelligence is rapidly reshaping how people create, learn, and interact with the world. So the question isn't simply how does AI impact music education? The deeper question is how are we cultivating creators and protecting cultural development? So today's conversation, you all heard a bit about our brilliant panelists that have joined us. You can tell that they represent education in all its iterations. We have academia, we have entrepreneurship, we have external education organizations, we have arts administration, and so much more. So fitting for a conversation that reaches far beyond the classroom. So to kick it off, would love to hear from all of the panelists on how is it or is it not impacting your work? How is AI impacting your work currently at this time? You want to kick us off, Nikisha?
Yes, I can kick us off. So I think at my level, AI is here. It's something that's present. It's a current technology. With my students, I want them to embrace technology because I feel like, as we've seen, a lot of the times the music industry can be a little bit slow in adapting new technology, but also understanding the guardrails. I always like to say we had the car before we had the seatbelt. We don't want your student that's a producer or a songwriter or an instrumentalist to be left behind, not only knowing their craft, but knowing that the technology that's present in the industry that could potentially harm them or aid them in a way. There is some way that, AI can be used and has been used, in different DAWs and helping engineers clean up mixes. Like, those are practical uses of AI, but also understanding the extreme of when AI becomes a threat on the work that they do and knowing how to be prepared for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Ashley?
Yeah, so I work with a wide age range of young people. So the ages I work with are 12 to 29. So the 12-year-olds are like, what are you talking about? But the more college age students and up are definitely talking a lot more about AI. And as Nikisha already noted, it's here. The thing that they're grappling with is this something that's helpful or harmful to me in my career? And so they understand, like, it's not what they're supposed to be using in terms of like the all be all tool, but we often have to practice a lot of exercises in terms of understanding why we can't use it. I offered everyone on this panel, an example of when I teach my music education students. Someone was like, well, why can't I just write a lesson plan using AI? And I was like, all right, bring in the lesson plan with AI and you have to teach it. And it was the worst lesson I've ever sat in. But we have to go through the process of understanding why something doesn't work in order to then know how to grow. And so that's where my young people are definitely in that lane of. It's understanding the balance of where does this become helpful as a tool versus, because that's what it is, it's supposed to be a tool, it's not supposed to be your brain. And where is, thank you so much. And where is this harmful for my creation as an artist and a creator?
Again, yes, this guardrails, this idea of that protection. Arin?
Yeah, no, I think actually you hit it, like, where is it harmful to your creation, right? So something, I'll say where it impacts us, where I've seen it the most in Grammy Museum education. We actually had a person use it to submit to Grammy Camp. And the only reason we know is because we asked them to go through their process, right? We say, like, what is your process for this creation? And they listed it. So, that's where it's impacting, and we sort of see it as that, it's like a way to cheat around the process, right? To learn the rigor, to learn the discipline of what it means to create music, of what it means to, actually learn that discipline. And then I think the thing that protects us, and this is what Milton and I were talking about, is, nothing like this will ever replace the creative thought that you were talking about, Chelsey, in the sense that I had a teacher when I was in school at the University of Miami, Jim Progress, who went to Berkeley alum, but he said what artists do and sort of what you do in music is creative critical thinking, and he put them together specifically. So it's not just critical thinking that you might learn at school, but the creative critical thinking as a totality. And that's something that I think, and I'll pass it to Milton with this one, because it's something that teachers actually teach.
Thank you, Arin. In my work as a school administrator, an arts school administrator, and a performer, I have to think about teacher education, music teacher, arts teacher education, and how we confront the reality of AI. And so I think about it not as artificial intelligence, but adapt and innovate. I think of it that way, that we adapt to this technology. It doesn't replace teachers, doesn't replace it. It's a teacher aid. It helps with writing lesson plans that you then have to take and adapt it to your student culture, to your school culture. So you use it that way as a tool. So what I do with my teachers is just really reassure them of how to understand it, and that AI, in my opinion, lives and thrives in the present and the past. Now, what I mean by that is that you have to give it prompts, and it draws upon data sets that already exist. So the humans, the creatives, we have to create the data sets for the future, what AI can draw upon. So it can't exist without that. So that's the stance that I have to take with teachers, especially music teachers who try to grapple with whether or not there's relevance in face-to-face music teaching. And one thing that Arin and I were talking about was that when schools have gone to this one-to-one technology thing that happened during COVID, where everybody had one-to-one Chromebooks or whatever, achievement went down. No teachers, technology, achievement went down. So that wasn't the answer. So when the students come back to school, the teachers had to work with the students to even get them back to zero, not even move them forward, just to fill that hole. So that's kind of how it impacts my work as a high school and an arts administrator.
Thank you, Dr. Ruffin. The AI, so tools have been around, technology has been around for a long time that's allowed us to enhance recordings or, enhance our experience of something. But with AI, we are now experiencing what happens when this tool can mimic identity. It can listen for seconds and then mimic and execute something that has a stylistic identity in a similar sense, right? And of course, those with a more refined ear can understand that. But there's a very large majority of people that may not quite hear those distinguishable characteristics that make it, come alive for a musician or for another listener. What responsibility does music education have to stylistic integrity and growth? But how can we encourage our students to utilize the technological tools to enhance that, but not depend on it to make it some sort of like perfection or something that they think has to happen because of what society consumes? How do we keep that integrity alive, even with AI? It's a tough question, and I mean, and we're just thinking, because I think in my classrooms, and maybe I'll share just a little bit. I think what happens right now is AI is not only affecting how we produce, but it's also affecting spins and charts and streaming, and we see AI songs ending up in top 10 chart positions that have no human input. You have somebody that put in a prompt and now here's a whole catalog of songs. So that is, getting labels' attention. It's getting young people's attention, because sometimes, as we know with social media, it's about what's getting attention, not about the artistic integrity behind it. So I think what I'm seeing in the classroom is us having to confront this challenge of, we want you to come to the stage as an integral artist. Like, what are you trying to say with your unique voice? And I'm really interested to hear, just with how you all show up in education in so many different ways, how you're confronting this like idea of autonomy and authenticity in art, even with the uses of AI.
I'll start first. I'll jump first. I think
Sure.
it goes back to the piece that you had mentioned about culture.
Yeah.
And it's something in a few different ways. So like at the museum, the presence of education is very much around music industry education, or the things that are happening in the museum. So the cultural aspects of the exhibits and taking curricular resources out of those and making them for the classroom. I think it's something that Berkeley does really well itself. They hold up a mirror to what happens in culture, and they figure out a way to curricularize it, right? That was sort of Lee Burke's vision of things, is to make it sort of that, why there are 17 or probably more majors now at Berkeley. But I also think it's something that like Ashley and the Trombone Shorty Foundation do really well, because they rely so much on the tradition of New Orleans musics, not like as a singular, and bringing in sort of those culture bearers from the communities to come in to then sort of pass down the traditions and the legacies. And I think that's how you get, and I don't know, Ashley, if you have anything to add, but that's how you get that authenticity, I feel, and your kids have it in droves.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm going to share something that Arin and I have done and said in panels so many times. My culture definition, yeah. So one thing that I always offer my young people, specifically like the 18 and up ones, is a definition of culture to really tee up our conversations that we lean into for the year. And so I use this definition of culture is shared patterns that we use to make meaning about what is and what is not appropriate. And so as we think about culture, we think about it in so many different levels. Obviously, we have our surface level culture, but it goes super deep. We could even think about it, as simple as eye contact, or the way that we treat our elders, right? There are so many different levels to what culture looks like and feels like. And so to Arin's point about what we do in our programs, a lot of what we lean into is like, what do you see in your streets, in the neighborhoods, of what's actually happening? And so, as we think about these lenses and mirrors and also navigating AI, it's more about like, how do you want to show up for our community, and using that instead as our framing, so that AI is not even a conversation in a brass band space. It's about, how do I look, and forgive my phrasing here, how do I look the most badass as I go down the street? I had to drop it. The intrusive thoughts kicked in. And so how do I look this way? How do I come in cool? How do I sound like the best new thing? Because I want to be able to sustain myself, to feed myself. Because right now I'm thinking about how am I making sure that my needs are met first, so that AI isn't even like a thought process that crosses that room or threshold.
Love that.
I think also as well, speaking on, I want to feed myself. One thing that I always ask my students, and again, I'm teaching students, if you're in a music business program, you want to be in the music industry. You want to make a living from this. You understand that there's work that has to go into it. And so, you're in an industry, so there's always going to want to be people that take the shortcut and monetize as quickly as possible, as quick as they can. But that's not where you want to be in the long run. Do you want to be a legacy artist? Do you want to have integrity? If so, you put the work in every day. You work with collaborators so you can build community, so you can understand different cultures. Like, I make my students work together all the time, and they hate it. I also think that was also birthed from COVID, but knowing other personalities in this business is a big part of this business. And so being able to kind of drive it from that lens. And again, it depends on where you want your career to go. Do you want to take that quick road and not hit the bumps along the way? But the bumps are where you learn, and that's music education.
I love that. Clap it up, clap it up. And that speaks to what we were kind of talking about earlier with developing this passion to continue learning, to continue striving for that next level. And Dr. Ruffin, you were talking about how even now you still are listening to players play and you're like, man, I want to get on the bass and lock in and learn this lick. Like, what do you think the role of the music educator is? And I'll be completely honest. A lot of times we relegate, quote unquote, music education to the classroom, and that's a very small box to put it in. But all of us know that are on the stage, every audience member is in our classroom. When they come to a show, they're learning about us. They're getting fed by whatever we're saying, whatever we're playing. And so to have this continued passion to want to keep growing as an artist, what do you think the role of the music educator is to help instill this passion, and how do we not lose that fight against technology?
Okay, wow, that's a hard question. That's harder than the one before.
I'm gonna go with an easy question next.
Well, as we all know, as musicians, as passionate musicians, music is something that we chase constantly. And we can never catch it. And we can't stop chasing it. Think about that. We chase it constantly, can't stop chasing it, and can't catch it. So our job as music educators is to unlock that passion that the students come with. And relative to the culture issue that they were just talking about, if a student comes to your classroom and you're not familiar with their culture, how do you unlock their motivation if you're not familiar with it? Secondly, if you have let's say a concert band chart, I don't know, whatever it is, and you have a drummer that plays in their church every Sunday and can really play, what do you do? What do you do with that? So my answer would be, as educators, we have to create a context for students to contribute. That's our job to do that. Not say, oh, well, you can play the snare drum part. There's nothing wrong with the snare drum part, or you can play the gong or whatever. But you got to create context that aligns with their culture, too. So I think our job becomes more as an educator with AI is to use AI as a tool, again, before a lesson for planning purposes so that you can make choices on how you're going to deliver the instruction. And then after the instruction, being able to take a look at rubrics and things to judge whether or not you were successful, if there's some success criteria that you can draw upon to make sure that you've aligned with the intended outcome. So I think that we have to coexist, but we have to create that context for contribution, and that the culture piece is very important with aligning with the culture. And the last thing I'm going to say about culture is school culture. So as an administrator, I have to look at school culture. Is there violence in the school? Is there a lot of bullying? Is all of that kind of stuff going on? Well, in an arts environment, being different, being somewhat outrageous, being innovative, that's welcomed. So you're not ridiculed because you're different, because what you're doing is something like really cool and happening. Then that kind of pulls you into the school culture. So that helps with school culture when it comes to, all the unwanted conduct that's going on. So hopefully I got to you.
Y'all are saying they're hard questions, and then you're giving great answers. So, you know what I'm saying? Can we just say that much? So let's say you are not necessarily a music educator, but say you're an artist that got invited to do an educational workshop for a community group, and you're thinking about something that you might find engaging with the audience. And I think it's interesting because there are a lot of music schools and traditional programs that still don't even teach about Pro Tools. They don't even teach about Ableton and DAWs that can work. So we're talking about AI. That's a whole nother level of technological consideration. But if you're just trying to put together like a workshop or something that you think is important to what young creators need to know today, what are some of those like fundamental pieces of a workshop you think are important besides just the music?
I would say number one is making it interactive. First and foremost, kids learn by doing, right? I mean, that's what we had talked about.
I would say, and I don't understand how early, I'm not sure how early you could do this, but letting them know that this is actually a viable career and how to see yourself as an entrepreneur very on, which I think we're seeing. Like I'm seeing, kids at Grammy camp, there was a kid that was a producer. He's like, all right, I have a company set up. I'm like, how old are you? I'm like 15. I was like, okay.
Kids coming out with like 100,000 followers already.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like they're already selling things.
Amazing.
A great thing about technology is that it's been able to educate our music creators at a much younger age, but they also need the education of, okay, how do I actually turn myself into an entrepreneur? How do I actually get paid for my beats? How do I actually register my beats? Like, what is the actual fundamentals of the business side too? So I would include that in the workshop.
I think you raise a really good point. It's understanding that there's this multitude of careers just beyond the traditional of I can be a performer or I can be a classroom educator, to your point, Chelsey. Like, there's 100+ different opportunities.
I think just going to the fundamental of like setting up a workshop, the number one thing that I ask young people is like, what do you want to get from me? Because sometimes they're too scared to ask their regular teacher about things because they haven't seen them have the expertise or experience with it. And so when we allow our young people to say, like, what do you want to get out of this experience? They'll tell you. They know what they want to learn. And so it's an opportunity to set up these spaces for them that are truly authentic and allow them to understand what's happening in this larger industry space. And to Nikisha's point, I mean, I constantly ask this question of like, how many of you are creators? And a lot of them get nervous about answering that because they've been taught this misnomer, and Arin also touches on this as well, of like, you have to be a full-time performing musician in order to be considered a creative. And so I think we also need to start getting that thought process because there's no one right way to be a creator, right? And so starting to allow some space for dreaming to happen is really where, when we're thinking about workshop setups, is how do we allow space for our young people to dream in these really big ways too.
And I would add one thing. I think the biggest thing that you can do in an education setting is, beyond the notes, is to let young people know about the tools. Like, if we're not giving them the tools, then we're failing them as educators. So whether it's one workshop and one tool, that's fine. Or if it's one workshop and 5 tools, but that they know about the tools and then they have the autonomy and the ability to go out there and use them.
I get goosebumps just thinking about the tools and the dreaming piece, because, you know, with so much going on in our world today, how many of us wake up with that first mindset of blue sky dreaming? Today's gonna be amazing. Today is gonna be everything and more, and I'm gonna be able to live in my full self, artistically, creatively, just authentically in every single way. And I think that is part of what music education can unlock in someone. They wake up and they turn on that tune and they might be a little sleepy, but as soon as that beat starts, you're like, okay, it's gonna work out. So how can we empower, you know, our community? Shout out to all the Recording Academy members in the house today. Thank you for coming. We have a membership that, you know, covers so many different types of creators, so many different professional establishments, and I think that, you know, once somebody feels like they have a certain amount of credits, like, all I have to do is keep getting credits. But how can we continue to stay encouraged ourselves? Like, how can we play with AI to make it be a partner instead of it being something that becomes a rival?
That wasn't an easier question either. Okay, so not being a rival. Well, I think that you should don't discard learning styles. And for instance, if I were to do a workshop right now and I wanted to teach, AI would recommend, okay, if you want to teach first graders about triads. Okay. All right. So then I would probably take a kinesthetic activity. Like, in other words, have 3 people stand there. 1, 2, 3. You know, young kids, they want to line up and do something. So we line 3 kids up. All right. You're the root, you're the third, and you're the fifth. So I want you to stay two steps apart from each other. All right. So now, to make this major triad, you're a triad, root, third, fifth. To make this major triad a minor triad, the one in the middle, take a step this way. See how it made that distance smaller? Okay, so now what we've done is we've taken a concept and turned it into a tactile activity that kids love. Okay, so make that minor triad major. They go back. I said, okay, now if we're thinking about this big word, augmented. Augment means to make bigger. So what we'll do is we'll take the fifth, or this person here, and take 1 step that way. Now the distance between this person and this person is further. See, that makes it augment, it makes it bigger. Now you're scaffolding, and then you say, okay, well, let's make it major again. So they go back. Now, we're going to make it minor. Okay. Now, here's the key. We want to make it diminish now. Diminish means make it smaller. So before you could even say it, they're figuring it out. So now you've taken this concept that maybe AI has helped you with a lesson plan, and then you begin to tailor it to how you would actually make that work in a setting. You know, and that's what teachers do. So that would be my response to something
Again,
like that.
amazing answer.
That was amazing.
And I just want to add, I think we are about to be out of time, but I want to add this, because for teachers in general, education is a new front line for so much of what's coming in the classroom. And educators are having to deal with much more than just what they were assigned to teach. We're dealing with there are developmental considerations. There are so many emotional needs that we have to cover in classroom spaces. And I think the burden felt by teachers is growing. The weight is getting heavier. And I think I took a sabbatical a couple years ago. It blessed me immensely. And upon returning to the classroom, it dawned on me that the best way to take care of my students is to take care of myself, right? The best way that I can encourage them to develop themselves is by them seeing the joy in me developing and enjoying my journey as an artist. Right? It's me not staying, it's you all, it's us not staying thirsty, but it's us pouring into ourselves that will help enrich how we're able to show up. And that's when they learn the most, right? It's not our job as educators to have them produce something. Our job is to encourage them with options, to show them options, to show them this is possible for you. This is an opportunity for you if you take the initiative. I can't take the initiative for you. I can introduce you to it, but you have to do it yourself. And then they learn that they are their own teacher, because that will carry them for the rest of their career. You're gonna see me for one level of school, right? So I would just encourage all of you all to keep the passion alive of education and growing in your artistry for yourself. That's the gifting that you have, and that's your divine assignment to continue to pour into this world. I want to thank our panelists for their brilliance, navigating all my hard questions, and just also for showing up in all the ways that you do in education every single day and in advocacy. Thank you, Todd, and thank you to the advocacy team for all of your efforts with Future Forum as well. Thank you, members.
Yes, thank you, everyone.